Cluster number 2 is headed by Ms. Ayman Adnan. This cluster includes Judiciary as a political actor, Chapter 3. This is actually the question which you had asked earlier. It was actually covered here in Chapter 3. And Chapter 4 covers the turmoil in FATA. The cluster members who are presenting are Mr. Qazi Muhammad Haris, who will do the Chapter 3 Introduction to Judicial Activism. And then Ms. Aneel Qayyum is going to speak about Chapter 3. She will move on with Chapter 3, Judicial Activism to Conclusion. Qazi Muhammad Haris will present Judiciary as a Political Actor, Part 1. He's from Nushaira, KPK. He works in Supernet Limited, has done BSc Engineering from Lahore, and he is interested in, his interests include society, crime, and political science. These are the areas which he is, in which he is interested. The next presenter after him is Ms. Aneel Qayyum. She is also going to present the Judiciary as a political actor. Anila is from Mangla district, Mirpur in Azad Jammu Kashmir. As I said earlier, that here we are represented by all the folk from throughout Pakistan. And she's working as a teacher in government sector. She's MSc in chemistry from Mirpur University, and her interest is politics. And in 2021, she is going to do her first attempt.
Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum, sir. Aapko alag se. Thank you very much for such a wonderful introduction to me and my group. It has already boosted our spirits, I believe. Aapne itne achhe alfaz mein introduce kiya. Haris, I'd just like to request you that jitni der mein I am giving the introduction to the group and the chapters, aap utni der set up your slides, because I don't need any slides while I am introducing. You do that in
I'm ready.
Okay, fine. You can share your screen. Maybe that will help. But in the meantime, I'll just introduce everyone. So before Qazi Haris starts with his presentation on chapter number 3, let me just introduce things about the chapter that we have been assigned. I am Ayman Adnan, and I will be leading cluster 2. So cluster 2 was assigned chapter 3 and 4 to wonderfully written and very interesting chapters. And as all of you must have already heard, that chapter 3 is about judiciary being a political actor in the political landscape of Pakistan, and chapter 4 being about the society in FATA. So the chapter 3 actually deals with judiciary taking control in the political landscape of the country, its role in shaping the political culture of Pakistan, and its topsy-turvy path in gaining stability and influencing the environment overall, and how itself in turn has been influenced by some actors such as military, parliament, and executive. So this would be covered by Qazi Haris and Anila in chapter number 3. However, in chapter number 4, we would be talking about FATA, but that is something that I leave for some other time, so that when I start introducing and presenting that chapter, I'll just go into the introduction then. As for now,
tradition in legitimizing Musharraf's coup. One point to note here is that Justice Iftikhar was one of the justices who took an oath under General Musharraf's PCO Provisional Constitution Order in 2000. The reasons of military's power are as follows. The institutions of this hybrid regime are weak. The parliament and political parties, policies and laws are not conceived and written in parliament and provincial legislative assemblies. Rather, that has been done by a handful of insiders in the offices of the ruling political party's leader. The media has not played its due role, and also the civil societies seems bereft of organized social movements capable of changing the regime's character. Lawyers movement started in 2007 as a result of tussle between the Chief of Army Staff, General Musharraf, and the Chief Justice, Iftikhar Mohammad Chaudhry, when the President Musharraf pressurized him to resign, but he refused to do so. In November 2007's emergency, roughly two-thirds of the justices refused to take an oath under the PCO, after which Chief Justice was put effectively under house arrest and lawyers, leaders jailed. Chief Justice was restored to his office by the civil government in 2008. And after his restoration, an active judiciary was seen. Efforts to appeal majoritarianism by Bradley Cannon by taking suo motu notices in favor of public interest. Bradley Cannon is a political science professor in University of Kentucky, and he defines majoritarianism as use of judiciary in public's interest. Here are some of its examples. Supreme Court forced intelligence agencies and the military to produce missing persons, mainly from Balochistan. It declared the government in contempt for putting Nawaz Sharif on an airplane to Saudi Arabia when he landed in Pakistan in September 2007. It declared emergency of 2007 unconstitutional and hence removed the PCO judges. It investigated the Memo Gate crisis, and it intervened when faults were found in the arrangements of the 2013 elections. That's all from me. And from here, I would like to call Ms. Anila Qayyum to present. Ms. Anila, you may take it from here.
Thank you, Haris. Hello, everyone. Sir, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, लेकिन आपकी आवाज बहुत लो है. थोड़ा लाउडर जरा माइक को क्रीप करना पड़ेगा आपको.
Okay, sir. Thanks, Haris. Hello, everyone. I'm Anila. I would present Judicial Activism. National Judicial Policy 2009. Actually, court pushed for judicial reforms, then series of conferences were held, then Law and Justice Commission of Pakistan produced formal judicial policy named as National Judicial Policy 2009. There were some basics aim behind this. One is promulgated reformation of judiciary. In this, authors mean judiciary wanted reforms to improve efficiency of court. Second was independence of judiciary. Court was in accordance with basic structure doctrine of Constitution. In this, hello,
Yes,
sir, can you hear me?
जी हाँ, आवाज आ रही है आपकी. बीच में बंद हो गया था.
Separation of powers in accordance with basic structure doctrine of Constitution. In this, author means basic structure doctrine was judiciary should be independent branch of government and should work without any political interference. Next was policy city to decrease the backlog of old cases. By adopting basic purpose of reforms was to solve the cases which were pending before the court. Next is, this performance enhanced the confidence of general public in judiciary. How this performance enhanced? Actually, by adopting this policy, judiciary, millions of cases were decided by judiciary, out of which 95% of cases were actually before 2008. By this performance, general public's confidence was enhanced. Now is the Bardak's 8-step policy. I must say that these steps should be implemented in Pakistan for better analysis, for better outcome, which are as follow. Define the problem, assemble the evidences, construct the alternatives, select the criteria, project the outcome, confront the trade-off, decide, and lastly, tell the story. Judicial independence. How judicial independence came? Firstly, the Constitution provides for the progressive separation. Constitution also wanted to isolate the judiciary from financial or any other administrative dependence. 18th and 19th Amendment, the Supreme Court strongly influenced the appointment of higher judges. In this context, 19th Amendment had taken the power from Chief Justice to appoint the higher judges and transfer this power to the Judicial Council of Pakistan. Then third one, strategic co-option of Islam encouraged by the Justice Cornelius. Justice Cornelius was the justice who served almost more than 16 years in Supreme Court. According to him, fundamental rights could be secured if Pakistani law made consistent with the Islamic law. He means that Pakistani law should be made consistent with Islamic law. Judiciary as a political actor. For this, we have classical model. According to author, the classical model, in classical model, executive, legislative, and judiciary form. Those powers do not reside in separate institutions of state. But in contrary to this one, in Pakistan, there appears three autonomous branches of government, that is, Parliament, executive under which, and military, and then judiciary. Next is hegemonic bid to influence the national political landscape. In this context, these three branches, executive, legislature, and the judiciary, had tried a lot to exercise their powers on one another. Judiciary as a political actor, one main factor was judiciary is responsible to keep the parliament and executive within the boundaries of laws rather than perpetuating judicial coup. Judicial coup many times compiled by the executive branch, as we have one example when President Zardari had dual office case. Then when it comes to the army, the court has been frank in its structure. In military context, one of the most famous example was, as discussed earlier by the Haris, when General Musharraf came, judiciary helped a lot to return his to Pakistan to fight election in 2013. Conclusion. By concluding all this, the problems of judicial process was, first off, there should be proper legal education and grooming of lawyers. In lawyers' case, there was hardly 2 weeks orientation offered to them. When we compare this thing to the civil servant, for a civil servant, there was 2 years training program offered to them. Second one, there should be balance between independent judiciary and judiciary as an unchecked force. In this case, I quoted from author's view, court should be independent, but as an unchecked force, we have seen in Zardari's dual office case, Zardari's order to demolish his political office, but according to Asma Jahangir, it was not appropriate for the judiciary to ask president what to do and what not to do. The next one is, for the democratic triumph, judiciary should support the parliament and presidency to regulate bureaucracy and military of the country. Thank you. Now we are open for question and answer.
Okay, thank you very much, Neela and Haris. Good presentation, thank you. There were some sound problems in the middle of Aneela's presentation, and in the beginning, I phased out. Just when I was starting to appreciate the technology has cooperated so far, we had an electrical failure. So I was not there in the beginning of the chapter. So we are getting the questions. Let me convey them to you. Ghulam Abbas is asking, parliamentary form of government is usually based on separation of powers, but judiciary intervenes in political decisions and refers to it as a doctrine of necessity. How do you see this? Haris, I think, is that your domain? How does the judiciary justify its intervening in the democratic process? Or Aneela, whoever wants to answer that, or Eamon, whoever.
Haris, what about you? आप कर रहे हैं या should I answer?
मैम ये अनीला के उसमें था.
कोई बात नहीं, okay, leave it, कोई बात नहीं, I'll just do it. गुलाम अब्बास, actually पहली बात तो ये कि thank you for the question. Secondly ये कि the judiciary never justifies itself, ठीक है? It is always कह लें किस तरह की हवा चलती है when the judiciary knows what to do. Sometimes it has happened that it has bent itself for the doctrine of necessity in order to, you know, cater to the whims of the military. At other times, it has catered to the whims of democracy. Other times, it has catered to its own whims. और वो हमने different aspects में देखा है, जिस तरह कभी 19th और 18th and 19th amendment तक को बात आ जाती है suspend करने की, when the judiciary thought that, you know, it was not going in its own favor. Then we had the instances where the martial laws and the coups were legitimized. And then we also saw jab 52(8)(b), 52, yes, that article 52(b), that was abrogated, and that not abrogated, scrapped off from the क्या कहते हैं constitution. It has been happening, and its reason जो आप अगर पूछ रहे हैं वो सिर्फ यही होता है कि whichever actor is more powerful in the corridor of politics, it actually influences the judiciary as well. And इसमें कोई hard and fast rule नहीं होता. It has to happen when it has to happen, and it does not happen जब इसकी ज़रूरत feel नहीं होती, या judiciary does not feel that there is a threat to its existence. Sometimes it becomes a flag bearer for democracy, and just being Pakistanis, we should pray that, you know, it usually is, so that better decisions can take place. I hope I have sufficed your curiosity about this question.
Thank you, Eamon. Well said that in the corridors of power, whoever has more power, it ultimately dominates the other one. And this is unfortunately the story of Pakistan throughout. So it's never the judiciary or the legislature or the military and gaining the executive, gaining power by merit, I would say. It's the always like by power. Ultimately, it's hardly ever by merit. My own observation of this country is it dates for something like 50 years now. So I often say that the experience which I have of looking at and observing Pakistan, 2-4 बरस की बात नहीं, ये निस्फ सदी का किस्सा है. And sometimes when I look at it now, I'm very surprised that yes, it is half a century that we have been seeing all this. So when people get upset कि ये क्या हो रहा है मुल्क में, ये क्या हो रहा है, तो हमारा आंसर क्या होता है? मेरी जनरेशन के लोग क्या कहेंगे कि देखते जाओ. And that's how. But as far as the academic things are concerned, the examinations are concerned, of course, we have to stay on the idealistic side. One of the advantages of books like this is that they present you things as they are, and they are not colored by the fears which most of us Pakistanis have grown up with, and been growing up in this country under the regime of, say, for example, right in the beginning of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, then General Zia, then the 3 governments changing, and then Musharraf. So we are filled with a lot of fear and a lot of considerations for various things. But when we have foreign analysts the advantage is that we sometimes get analysis which is totally free of bias or any fear and things like that. One of the advantages of articles in this book, which I really appreciate, is that they're very in-depth, and that is why this book, despite an array of books besides this, it has stood out, and that's why I call it phenomenal, that it offers a very clear, crystal clear situation of Pakistan's different dynamics. I think we do not have any Kasser, can anybody answer here, or is it in the next chapter? The question is, won't it be feasible to have presidential regime where intervention is less? How can we say that intervention is less? We have seen presidential regimes during the last 50 years, 70 years of Pakistan, that is. But there have always been interventions, whether if we speak about Ayub's era when he was a president, even then, throughout the last so many years, we have seen presidential regimes many times in Pakistan. For some time, even Bhutto was a president and General Zia was a president. The dictators have been presidents. But even then, there have been a lot of interventions. So it's not the system of government. No system of government in Pakistan has ever had a smooth sailing. Martial laws, okay, but then we cannot call it smooth sailing. That is because if you suppress everybody else, then of course there is no, आपने बाकी सारा जो है साइडें बंद करो, चुप करवा दी, तो फिर हम ये तो नहीं कह सकते कि जी कितनी खामोशी है, कितना सुकून है. It's not like that. If we are through with our questions, shall we move on to the next one?
Sir, आपका question और है?
I don't think it's a comment. Basically, Muhammad Arshad says that in every aspect, judiciary and military are powerful. That is his comment on all this discussion. Okay, Mohammad Faisal has a question that current judicial system of Pakistan, is it in favor of Pakistan or against the democratic values? Just first part of the question. Who would like to answer that? The current judicial system of Pakistan, is it in favor of democracy in Pakistan or not?
Sir, I would take the lead in answering the question to the best of my abilities. But you know, Haris and Aneela, अगर आप लोगों के पास इसमें कुछ बेहतर है, तो आपने kindly chip in करना है. Sir, I would say कि अब जो जुडिशरी भी जो है ना, इसको हमें दो टीयर्स में डिवाइड करना पड़ता है. एक है द सुपीरियर जुडिशरी एंड द अदर वन इज द लोअर जुडिशरी, एंड देयर इज अ स्टार्क डिफरेंस ऑफ वैल्यूज अमंग्स्ट द टू. जो आपके जजेस हैं ऑफ द हाई कोर्ट एंड द सुप्रीम कोर्ट, some of them are highly competent and they are highly intellectual and they are highly enlightened and are working for the progression of the country, and they just see no difference in between, you know, military executives and parliament and, you know, they themselves. वो अपनी job कर रहे हैं ये सोच के कि we all are Pakistanis and, you know, we are given a responsibility to cater to our institutions and to bring the best out of them. However, कुछ उनमें से ऐसे हैं जो कि अब lower उसकी आप ले लें जुडिशरी के केसेस, उसमें ये होते हैं कि some are good, competent and all, but you know the plethora of the intake that the judiciary is having right now, their actions and their philosophies, ideologies are reflecting a very uncivilized way of, you know, thinking and living and to have a standard of living. इसकी एग्जांपल जिस तरह अभी पंजाब इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ कार्डियोलॉजी को अगर लें, द वे द लॉयर्स टर्न्ड इनटू द प्लेस जहां पर अब वो इलाज के लिए जाते हैं, और जहां पर पहले वो उन्होंने डॉक्टर्स के साथ जिस तरह मैन हैंडलिंग की थी और बदतमीजी का बाजार गर्म किया हुआ था, इस वक्त देखा जाए वही लोग कोरोना के लिए उन्हीं डॉक्टर्स के पास जा रहे हैं ना, उन्हीं गवर्नमेंट हॉस्पिटल्स में जा रहे हैं और बाकी चीज़ों के लिए जा रहे हैं. सो ये जो डेमोक्रेसी होती है ना, इट इज़ नॉट ओनली अबाउट being implemented in the domain of politics. It is a way of life. It is a discourse. It's a journey. इसका मतलब सिर्फ पॉलिटिक्स नहीं होता. It is about a culture. तो डेमोक्रेसी जो आपकी है वो हर लिहाज से हिट होती है when you are not actually abiding by the culture of democracy, when you are not respecting each other as your citizens, you feel that one is superior than the other, one job is superior than the other, and when you are forgetting the fundamentals of providing the natural rights to people. सो उस लिहाज से हम ये नहीं कह सकते कोई एक डिसीजन आया या फैसला आया ऑन अ वेरी मैक्रो लेवल सिर्फ गवर्नमेंट पे या सिर्फ डिक्टेटर्स के लिए या फिर एक गवर्नमेंट को टॉपल करने के लिए या दूसरी को लेजिटिमाइज करने के लिए, सिर्फ वो डेमोक्रेसी के अगेंस्ट जाना नहीं होता अगर वो फैसला गलत है। ये चीजें भी होती हैं दैट वी नीड टू टेक इनटू अकाउंट एंड इट इज वेरी मच एम्बेडेड विद इन द कल्चर ऑफ जुडिशरी एंड एट लार्ज द कल्चर ऑफ पाकिस्तान। हारिस एंड अनीला, अगर आपके पास कोई इसमें ऐड करने को चीज है तो प्लीज गो अहेड।
Yes, thank you, Eman. That was quite comprehensive. I would just like to answer one of the comments by Faisal. He's asking that why are we limiting? I mean, why are we not relating our topics with the past lesson and compare with the present and predict the future? Why we limit ourselves to the book? Faisal KK, this is. Let me finish, please. Thank you. We are here. Look at what the Readers Club is about. We are here to present right in the beginning I said, maybe you were not here, that we are presenting the analysis of the book, the critical analysis, critical reading of the book. This is not a discussion forum. This is not a discussion forum. We are presenting the views presented in the book. We are providing its critical analysis, but not discussing it here. But its projection into, we would love to do that. The basic idea was that we would love to use these ideas to talk about the current discussion also and predict the future also and so on and so forth. But then we can just take one chapter maybe for 1, 3 or 4 hours and discuss that. So that is our limitation. I would like to move on to the next one because it's already Pona 1 and we will not be left with too much time for the Chapter 2, please.
Please,
Eman. Just a minute, please. Just a minute.